Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis with an Age of Sigmar video. Today we're going to do my first impressions on the new Warhammer Age of Sigmar game. Now, for the record, I have not yet played Age of Sigmar. I'm still waiting for a chance to meet up with Kieran because he has gone away. He went on holiday around the time that Age of Sigmar has come out. So we haven't been able to meet up for a game yet. But once he's back and I'm back off my holidays, we will absolutely be playing it. And we'll bring you battle reports, strategies, maybe rules discussions at the very least, just to let you get a more in-depth look at the game. But for today, first impressions. Let's start with the lore, because while everybody's talking about all the rule changes, something that really stuck with me was the lore. Because the lore has to be good, it's GW. And it was. It's pretty good, although I can see one too many similarity to the Great Crusade. One too many. Sigmar, in his artwork that I've seen of him so far, is very much like the Emperor, flying around, wielding a hammer, which is Galmaraz, of course. And the Stormcast Eternals remind me very much of Astartes, which is disappointing, I guess. But hey-ho, I can't really do anything about that. But the lore itself is really well written, it looks good, looks solid, and it looks like there's a good explanation for what's going on. I'd like to know a bit more about what happened to get Chaos in. All I know so far is that there is some form of betrayal by someone. I'm yet to read the actual 96-page lore book that comes with the starter box, if we get the starter box, or seen it online, so I have yet to actually read the lore in full. But it looks interesting, and there are a couple of nice Easter eggs in there, such as all the Mortal Realms being named after the winds of magic. Nice touch. So the lore looks good. I'm quite happy with that. The models look really good. Say what you will about the Stormcast Eternals. I agree with you. They look like Space Marines and they're very easy to make as Space Marines. But they look really good. The Lord Celestin on his Griffin, Hippogriff thingy, he looks really good. The Retributors look quite good. The Liberators look good. The Prosecutors, the Flying Guys, like Sanguinary Guard crossed with Sisters of Battle Celestians with the dual wield weapons. They look really good. I am really impressed with those models. On the other side, the Khorne Gortide, really nice. The Chaos Cultists, as I want to call them, I don't know what they're actually called, will either make good Cultists or good Dark Eldar Racks, because they're all bare-chested. You could probably do some nice rack conversions. There is a big monster type thing, which would make a good Demon Prince or Hellbrute if you wanted it to. The Icon is huge. The huge Icon battle standard is massive, and the Lord looks good as well with a Flesh Hound of some description who, yeah, he just looks really, really good. So I'm quite impressed with the models. They are very good, and they really set the scene well. As far as upcoming releases, it looks like there will be some Sigmarite Archers and another Elite Stormcast Eternal unit. But I don't know more on that. If you want to have a look at them, there is a very, very brief snippet showing them off in the Warhammer TV trailer for Age of Sigmar, which is Games Workshop's YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description below. I'll also put a link to the Spiky Bits White Dwarf review, so as you can have a better look at the lore that I've been very briefly talking about. Right, now the meat. Rules. There are 4 pages of them. Is that a good thing? Probably, because as we've said before, the game needs to be easy to understand. It really does. Noobs need to get it, and old players still need to enjoy it. Will new players get it? Absolutely. It's a very simple rule set to understand. Will old players like it? Mixed. From what I can gather from what I've seen on the internet, the people I follow on Twitter, they seem to quite like it, but they have their reservations and issues. I think that's probably the overriding attitude that we have at the moment is, it's good, but, and there's always a but. Everyone's but is slightly different, but there is always something nagging at us. For me, it's army selection. Because I'm so used to points costs that seeing a game where there's no points cost and you're just expected to balance your games manually is hard. Like, I play Elves against Skaven. How do we balance this game up? Do we count it as 2 Skaven to 1 Elf, because that's what they used to cost? No, because all the stats are now tied into weapons, and they all got better. On the whole, anyway. They got more balanced. They're all in line with each other. So we just take 1 for 1. Okay, but then you're taking all the special rules into account. Hey, yeah, balancing up is going to be an issue, particularly if you want to play larger games where you're adding in monsters into the equation. It is just going to be confusing. But that is something I think we will have to just work out on our own. I think the best advice we can give is just sit down with your opponent, talk it out, think about what you want to bring, what your opponent wants to bring, how well it'll balance, what you need to chop and change. Maybe drop a couple of upgrades, which are obviously free. It's up to you, but that's how I think is the best way to go about doing it. It does concern me though, and it will be something we'll talk about, I'm almost certain, when we do our battle report and rules discussions. The next thing is the turn sequence. Now, the turn layout has changed. We now have the hero phase where you do spells and things, movement, shooting, charge. So you charge now like you're doing 40k. Then you have the assault phase, and then you have battle shock phase, which is something I'll come back to. But the turn order is not fixed. So you alternate deployment, so 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit. First to deploy goes first, which means if you have a smaller army, you're guaranteed first turn. Pretty much. Unless maybe... No, you are pretty much guaranteed first turn unless the difference in units is basically 1. You are almost guaranteed to go first. But then from the second turn, you roll off and pick. The winner picks who goes next, meaning that if you get lucky, you can just stack turns. So if I've got a static army set up for shooting and I take first turn, or I deploy first so I have first turn, and I shoot at you, and then you move towards me, and I'm thinking, right, I've got one more round of shooting and then they're up in my face. Oh wait, nope, my opponent's taking it. Shine a light. And all of a sudden my opponent's charging me 1 turn before I'm ready for them. Yeah, that's not fun. That's not fun at all. So that's a worry, is that armies that rely on shooting are in trouble. But on the flip side though, you might have it that where you get an extra turn of shooting, which you by right shouldn't get. So it works both ways, but I can just see it absolutely shafting people who are in the perfect setup. They just need 1 more turn to get ready and their opponent jumps in and takes them out. Yeah, that's not going to be fun for anyone. You may want to house rule that. I don't want to talk about house ruling too early, but I think house ruling that down the line might be something worth considering. Speaking of house rules, models, you measure unit coherency and things model to model. Not base to base, model to model, because we've got round bases, we've got square bases, base to base would be awkward. Meaning that rules as written, if you have a guy whose spear is way, way out in front of him, you measure from there. Not here, not his base, the end of his weapon. Rules as written. Rules as common sense, you should measure from the shoulder pads, the feet, the waistline, something like that, and ignore weapons and arms and outstretched thingies, just for ease of measuring. Now, unit coherency is 1 inch, which is half the separation of 40k, but it's better than being ranked up, especially with the maneuverability stuff. And you cannot go within 3 inches of an enemy model at any time unless charging them. Yeah, let me just explain what that means. So, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to set up a little demonstration. I'll show you what I mean by this 3-inch separation. This is a little demonstration to show you how bad that 3 inches thing is. So, here is an elven archer. He's on his own. And around him is a unit of white lions and Illyrian reavers. They both still exist. Down here is an orc war boss who wants to charge the archer. All well and good, like, okay, he can just go straight through this gap and splat him in the face, right? Wrong. 6 inches. Now, the warboss cannot at any point, unless he is charging a unit, be within 3 inches of it. He can't just move through. He cannot be, rules as written, within 3 inches at any time. Meaning, this gap here is about 5 inches. You can see that. I'll put it the other way up for your ease and viewing pleasure. It's about 4 or 5 inch gap between the Reaver and the White Lion. What that means is that the warboss cannot go through here because he is within 3 inches of the White Lions and 3 inches of the Illyrian Reavers. Even though when he gets to the guy, he will be more than 3 inches away. Oops. Even if he gets to here, he'll be more than 3 inches from anyone, then that's fine. His charge move will bring him at some point within 3 inches of these two. Meaning he cannot do that. That move that I just did is illegal. You see the size of this gap, and you think, how can this guy not get through that gap? Because that 3-inch thing. If it was 2 inches, he would fit no problem. You can see 4 inches, bigger gap. He would fit no problem. 2 inches away. 1 inch away, well, the problem's pretty clear. But 3-inch separation means that anything, the gap, smaller than that my tape measure is showing you right now, which is a long way, might I point out, cannot fit. Which is annoying. Right. Demonstration complete. Now I'll go back and sit back down. You see why I have a gripe now, don't you? Right. Moving on, though. With that said, that's just an example of some of the things that are a little bit wonky. I get the feeling, though, that things will hopefully become a bit more clear as time goes on. The one last thing I want to point out is that characters, as far as we're aware, cannot join units at all. Meaning that character sniping is the easiest bloody thing on the planet. Seriously. Just bring a bolt thrower, or bring in a flying dragon and go, hello, bang, you're dead. And that actually can be a win condition, because of the sudden death mechanic. So if, when you're deployed, your army is 1/3 larger than your opponent, so your opponent has brought, I don't know, 25 guys, and you've brought 40 guys, your opponent draws a sudden death card, which is an instant win condition. It's a random card. It could be kill a character / monster. It could be secure a terrain piece in your opponent's deployment zone. It could be wipe out a certain number of units. I'm not sure all the sudden death cards are there. I think there are 4 of them. And that's basically slanting the game away from Horde armies, because they, all of a sudden, have to A, overcome their enemy, and B, not lose to a win condition. However, the actual win condition is that if you outnumber your opponent, you win. So there is an upside to having a large army. Meaning that, okay, let's say I manage to keep my characters alive. I hide them in a corner because I've realised what the problem is. Oh wait, my opponent now physically has to kill my entire army to win. Yay. So I think large armies and small armies both have their perks and both have their weaknesses. Small armies have easier ways to win, an easy win condition. But if they don't achieve that win condition, they probably lose. Horde armies have an easy way to lose, but if they can avoid that win condition, they will generally win because they outnumber their opponent. In equally pointed games, this should be less of an issue, but if you're playing an unbalanced game for narrative purposes, it can mean that it could get awkward. Right, last things I want to talk about. The Battle Shock phase and stat lines. The Battle Shock phase is done at the end of your turn. It's basically your morale check phase. And you roll a d6 for every unit that lost a model during the turn. And you add on the number of models that died. So if I have a squad that lost 2 guys, I roll a d6 and I add 2. For every point that result exceeds my bravery stat, I lose 1 more guy. So if I have a bravery 5 squad that lost 2 guys, and I roll a d6, and I roll a 6, I've therefore scored 8. 8 minus 5 is 3, therefore I lose 3 more guys. That could be brutal. That could be brutally punishing to low bravery armies. If you have large squads, your bravery does go up, but it's still quite nasty. Nice way of reflecting morale, though. Interesting way of doing it. Final thing, stats. You have 4 stats. Your movement value, which is usually 6 or 12. You have your number of wounds, your armor save, and your bravery. And that's it. You don't have a weapon skill, because your weapon determines what you hit on. You don't have a ballistic skill, because your weapon determines what you hit on. You don't have a strength or a toughness, because your weapon determines what you wound on, or your opponent's weapon determines what you are wounded on. I think there is a cover mechanic, but that's it. So there are weapons that are 4+ to hit, 4+ to wound, and that's it. They always hit on 4s, they always wound on 4s. There is also a rend characteristic which modifies your opponent's save. So rend 1, -1 save, rend 3, -3 armor save if such a thing exists. And there are multiple wound weapons as well. The number of attacks, I believe, is bound to the weapon. I believe it's bound to the weapon, not the model. But you'll see it on the war scrolls, which are your new unit entries. If you want to go and have a look at your particular army's war scrolls, whether they still exist, most of them do. I think they're all still there. You can go click the link in the description to the Bell of Lost Souls link, which will give you links to all of the War Scroll compendiums, or I believe they're available to download for free on the Games Workshop website along with the rules, although the rules are also contained within White Dwarf 75. The link to the review for that, as I mentioned I think earlier, will be in the description below. If you want to see a game of Age of Sigmar, I'll put a link again in the description to a Moorhammer battle report. Now, More Wargames is someone who I've come to know on Twitter. Great guy. His battle reports have a real nice comic effect to them as well. He started out doing fantasy, he's now doing Age of Sigmar as well. Worth a look. Go down, go sub, go watch. It'll give you a taste of Age of Sigmar, and he's a good guy to watch anyway. So, there you have it. My initial thoughts on the Age of Sigmar. Good lore, awesome models, rules that leave some questions to be desired. Questions to be asked and things to be desired. We'll have to see how it works. I still haven't played it. Obviously, these are my initial impressions, but I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm with most people. I'm quietly happy with it. There are some things we don't like, but then again, everything has things we don't like. So we'll give it a go, and we'll bring more content to you once we are able to play it and have a proper discussion about it. So thank you for watching. Leave a like on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments down below. I'd really love to hear from you about your thoughts on Age of Sigmar. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and until next time, I'll see you all again.